Hello everyone and welcome to Backcountry Gear Shed. In this video I'm going to be showing you a few variations of the bowline knot. If you haven't already learned the bowline knot, you should master that before proceeding to learn these variations. I have a video on my channel, Beginner's Guide to Knot Tying, 3 essential knots that you should master. You can watch the first few minutes of that video and it will teach you how to tie the bowline knot. And once you've learned that, come back here and proceed with these variations. With that out of the way, the first variation I want to show you is the double bowline. Now if you'll remember, my technique that I showed you in the previous video involves making a loop and then coming back through that loop like so. And that's the standard bowline. Now for the double bowline, we're going to start out in the same way, creating the loop, but then we're going to come around again for a second loop. And then the rest of the knot is completed the same way as the classic bowline. Although it does require a little bit more care in dressing the knot. And there you have the double bowline. I'll show you that again. Create the loop, come around a second time, and then here you do need to take a little care in how you dress this knot. And there is the double bowline. The next knot that I want to show you is the Portuguese bowline. The Portuguese bowline is started in much the same way as the other bowline knots we've looked at with this loop. In this case, we're going to come through that loop twice. And then the second time, we're going to complete the bowline in the same fashion that you're familiar with from the classic bowline. And you end up with this. You have a bowline with 2 large loops. And a really interesting thing about this knot is that you can actually pull slack from one loop into the other, even once the knot has been tightened. So this can be used for lifting a person in a rescue situation, or it can be used in towing a vehicle to tie off to tow points on the front of a vehicle, or in lifting any sort of long object. This could be a good fit for that. I'll show you that knot again. Create our loop. Going to come through that twice. Around the standing end, and back through the hole. We can tighten all of this up. And we have our Portuguese bowline. The next knot that I want to show you is the bowline on the bight. If you're not familiar with the term, a bight is when you pull a loop of rope or cord and make this kind of loop shape. That's called a bight. So in some cases you might have a rope that's already attached on both ends and need to add a loop in the middle of it. And the alpine butterfly that we looked at in my previous video, that tends to bind under load. It's not a non-binding knot. So, and also in some cases, someone trying to add a loop into a length of rope like that might do a simple overhand knot to create a loop. And this is also a binding knot. It looks good and it's simple, but it's not a good knot. This will bind and be impossible to get undone if it's been under a heavy load. But you can turn this into a good knot pretty simply, and the way that you do that is to take this loop and turn it back over itself, and then push this through here. And then you end up with this familiar structure See, that's that same bowline structure that we've been working with. And this is a non-binding knot, so you can put this under a very immense load and still be able to untie your knot when you're done. I'll show you that knot again. Untying it is the reverse. Just pass that back over itself. So here we have our bight. Pass this loop over the knot, push this through, and there is the bowline on the bight. One last variant that you'll probably run into just by accident, if nothing else, in practicing these knots is what I've heard referred to as the Cowboy Bowline. The Cowboy Bowline is very similar to the standard bowline, tied much the same way. So we'll make this loop, come through. Now the difference is all right here. So instead of coming around this way and back through the hole, we're going to go on the inside and back through. And that's called the Cowboy Bowline, where this tail ends up on the outside instead of being inside here. Now this is a kind of controversial knot. In Ashley's Book of Knots, a very famous authority on knot tying, he says that this is not a secure knot. It shouldn't be tied that way. Apparently this can work loose more readily than a regular bowline. However, I thought it was worth mentioning since, like I said, you'll probably run into that by accident if nothing else. There are some cases I've read of that seem to make sense where this might be a better knot to choose. Like if you were mooring a boat in a very cold conditions, and there was a chance that this was going to freeze to the rope and become very difficult to untie. This is a better knot in that situation, reportedly. If you haven't already done so, I would greatly appreciate it if you subscribe to my channel. Thank you for watching.